This is Harry Judd for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. I'm joined by the brilliant Gareth A. Davies. Tuesday afternoon. How are we, Gareth?
Very good, thank you, Harry. Nice to have you. Nice to be on with you.
Top man. First of all, let's go through the weekend's action. KSI with 2 knockout wins, just to get your reaction on that one.
Well, I mean, I've seen more action really at my local butcher's against a piece of meat, but it was stacked in favour of KSI. He was fighting his friend to begin with. To be honest, Swarms pulled off some new pirouettes that we've never seen in a boxing ring before. I was there for Talksport and I was doing lots of interviews with them. A lot of young people put up some tremendous performances, really. And until the bell rang, it felt like a really big boxing event in terms of pure boxing, because the crowds were in early. The place was nearly full before even the first fight took place between KSI and Swarms. And I think, the last fight of the night, the culmination, the climax of the night, if you like, Luis Pineda, he was holding the back of his head when he was hit to his body. So it was stacked very much in favour of KSI. But look, it was a fantastic audience. I got to interview a lot of young people who are very influential, from Heady One, the rapper, to Kano, to Louis Theroux was there, making a documentary about KSI at the moment. He's a very heavyweight hitter, remember, Louis Theroux, to have him there is big. What I did like most of all, I think, was like the ambience that group created. They are all influencers and YouTubers and mainstreamers in their environment. And it's good they've picked boxing to use as the platform. I don't think it brings boxing down. It's very different. It's like celebrity boxing, celebrity white collar boxing. And they pulled off a spectacular event. I'm really pleased I was there. It was a privilege to mix with that generation and that group who have a lot of influence on a lot of young people. And I found it very, very educational.
Do you think, because you mentioned the standard of boxing, do you think it was a positive or not? Because the reaction I've seen, similar to what you've just said in terms of eyes on the sport, but in terms of the actual competition, it wasn't that good. Do you think it brings it down, or what do you think?
Well, it is what it is. It's a playground fight. It's like if you shout fight, fight, fight in the playground, someone's training boxing. And there were a few people that had the moves in there. KSI's obviously trained very well. I know Vidal Riley well, who worked with him. He wasn't working for this one. Tony Cisse was in Swarm's corner. They're trying to, there's real gyms and real trainers trying to do as much as they can with what those guys are. I don't have an issue with them. I don't have any. It's entertainment, and I think boxing and boxers can learn something from that. Like, if you find you've got a personality that rubs people up the wrong way and you're a boxer, then use it. Because people are going to come to see you get knocked out. And if you don't get knocked out, they'll be your fans. And I think so. Just to answer your question, no, it's not standard. It's celebrity white-collar boxing. It's the same thing as a group of guys from different firms. I did one for the building industry recently, and I was emceeing in the ring, and it was like couple of guys in their 40s and their 50s who played hurling or who've played rugby. Steve Collins got in the ring to fill up the bouts against this former London Irish number 8. They put on a bit of a show. I think we can't take it too seriously in terms of the quality of the boxing, but where we have to be careful is that level where Jake Paul's at, where, he's starting to get to area cruiserweight or journeyman cruiserweight ability. And so the line gets blurred there. And, and he starts saying, I'm going to fight Canelo. And obviously that's ludicrous. But then again, Logan Paul was there on Saturday night. And I did say to him, I wasn't at Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather. Obviously, there's a massive disparity in size, and Mayweather's 43. But that looked like something from a parallel universe that night. It was a bit weird, So we have to be careful about the blurring of the lines in terms of pure sport. But I'm just glad that people see boxing as a place where they can have an influence on their followers and can fight knife crime, or if like you say, eyeballs on the sport. That's obvious, of course it is. But more people wanting to go to a gym and wanting to train. And I think it enriches our sport because I get to cover very big events. I was in Jeddah the week before. I'm going to be at Canelo and Triple G. I'm going to be at Parker and Joyce. I'm going to be at Taylor and Catterall. I'm going to be at Ben Eubank, and I'm doing radio. I'm doing writing, doing stuff for William Hill. But down the bottom end of boxing, the small hall shows and the not so rich events, I do think these events just maybe help a trickle down effect. People may disagree with me. I don't actually know, but I think it's here. I think it's here to stay. It's been here 5 years. And I think it's here to stay. The boxing purists don't like it, of course, but I don't mind change. I don't mind change, you know?
I was fortunate to be down and interview Swarms at the gym in Harlow that he was training in. I mean, again, he took the fight with such short notice. It was a lot of weight to lose. Incredibly brave. Don't get me wrong. He was obviously being paid well for that fight. But again, incredibly brave to get in there. And what he said afterwards on our channel with Ali Drew, which was really interesting in terms of trying to get young kids into boxing. He said, you know, that success is relative. You know, you can be a world champion, but to get into the gym and to lose some weight, I think, is obviously a success in itself. So I think even though his boxing, again, it wasn't competitive, I still think he done really well to get in there and give it a go.
Absolutely. He doesn't have to do it. He doesn't have to do it. He doesn't need to do that to make a living. It's not his calling. He put himself out there. I interviewed him afterwards on Talksport, and he was really gutted with his performance. He said, "I really want to get in there and learn some more." And I think that's what it does. It, you know, to putting the hard work in for a few weeks, getting that walkout, getting the disappointment of being bashed around, wanting to get up. Tony Cizé in his corner has done so much work in the East End with so many people over a long period of time in boxing, kind of saying, do you know what? He's actually got a dig on him, believe it or not. So, and he couldn't land it.
No.
And I say throwing and then pirouetting. Wasn't he? He was doing you know, I've never seen a boxer do that to get out of the way of a punch. It was
unconventional, Gareth. I think it was unconventional.
But I was there at Logan Paul and KSI in Los Angeles with William Hill for a week, and it was fascinating. All the A-listers there, and boxing brings drama, and it's still visceral, and it still brings theatricality to it. So there's not other sports. Like if they were all playing each other at darts, it wouldn't be the same. So, and you can't play boxing, can you? So I think it's interesting. And as I say, what my takeaway from it was, you know, they're not trying to say they're world champions, but what they are bringing themselves with their followers to one of the toughest things to do on earth: go out and have a fight in front of everyone. And they did all right with it. And people put a massive effort in there. You know, I don't remember any of the fights particularly. I mean, as I say, Luis Pineda was touching the back of the head when he's been hit to the body.
Yeah, it was.
So, he wasn't. It was an entertainment night. I've never seen a queue so long all the way to the bus station as well, beginning half an hour before an event. They behaved, as I could see, impeccably. It wasn't booze fueled. And as I say, I got to repeat this. The way that the different celebrities were with each other, I found very interesting. And you know, people might not appreciate me saying this, but seeing all the kind of creeds and the colors and the styles and all of them together, I liked it. I liked that generation in their mid-20s. My children's age, I really liked it. They've got something.
Now, following from that, the KSI and Tommy Fury discussions start. I mean, what do you make of that one?
No, not going to happen.
Go on, tell me your thoughts then.
Yeah, there are different levels right there. I do, whatever anyone says about Tommy, he's from a boxing family. I've known Tommy since he was about, I don't know, maybe 15, 16, when he was, certainly I knew Tommy when he was around Tyson and Big John at Fury's fight with Klitschko in Dusseldorf. I don't think I knew him before then, he was a little runt then. He was a tiny little skinny thing, but he was still boxing a little bit. You know, he's a big guy now. Jake Paul and Tommy is an interesting fight. It's an interesting matchup because
why is that more interesting?
Well, Jake Paul's a lot bigger than KSI for a start. I mean, I know KSI weighed in at cruiserweight, but he's not a big man. You know, he's really not. And I think KSI, and I like the jeopardy in that fight. I like the jeopardy in it. For me, it's a bigger fight. KSI, listen, he might sign against Tommy Fury, but I think with Tommy Fury, and I think it's probably the same with those around him, is he a boxer or is he a social media influencer? You know, is he a star is he a celebrity star? He and Molly, I mean, I know them both. They're a lovely couple. Tommy's a great kid, but is he a boxer or is he in that celebrity YouTube generation? It's a very difficult thing to decide. I don't think he's decided yet.
So do you think he should, in that respect, pick one or the other? Or because he's going to make a lot of money if he fights Jake Paul. Who's to argue against that? You know, but there will come a time where, like you said, he's going to be linked with one or the other. Either you pursue a career in a domestic level, the world title level, or you continue with your likes of your KSIs and your Jake Pauls.
Well, I think that's the problem at the moment. He's still a novice, very much a novice boxer with the pressure of the Fury name on him. You know, there's no way Big John wants him to lose to or Tyson, or I know they say those things like he can't step back through the door if he loses to Jake Paul. There's a lot of jeopardy on Tommy, and so I that's what I'm saying. I don't think he's decided yet. Am I a boxer or am I that? He's the first one we've really found who's completely caught in the middle. We know that the Paul brothers have come from YouTube, from that same generation that have grown up over the last 10 years, who were nerdy, to be honest, to begin with, and they found their niche. I mean, it's fascinating. I don't think Tommy knows yet. I really don't think he knows.
Well, we've seen rumours to that. I don't know whether it's officially announced, but Jake Paul may be fighting Anderson Silva on October 29th.
Well, Anderson, I've known a very long time.
Is it a pro boxer or is it just a pro fighter? Is it
remember, he's a Muay Thai and MMA fighter, really, isn't he? He's had a couple of boxing matches.
Legend, really.
Oh, he's he's completely a legend. One of the greatest knockout merchants ever in mixed martial arts, in the top 3. Maybe the top 1, actually, with the likes of people like Paul Daly, Melvin Manhoff, others. This in terms of knockout merchants, and I've covered many of his fights. Had some wonderful times with Anderson. I think Anderson's about 46, something like that. So he's very faded. He's not a boxer, but I do think his sniping left hands and the southpaw stance will give Jake Paul a lot of problems. When they look at that, it's a very tough fight for Jake Paul, in my view. I mean, listen, it all gets put out there on the aggregate. So I don't think anything's been signed yet, as far as I know. But that's a very tough fight for Jake Paul. Jake Paul versus KSI, I'd like to see.
Does that sell out Wembley?
What stadium?
Yeah.
Oh, I really don't know. I hope so, because I'll be there. If they're doing the broadcast on Talksport or DAZN or whoever wants me to be there and write about it and, do colour and describe the occasion. Yeah. Does it do Wembley? Well, why don't they try? Why don't they try? I mean, I think we might not have to wait for next year, actually. They could probably, those kind of fights, they can get on in a couple of months if there's a gap. And given that sellout on Saturday night was the first sellout for 3 years since Josh at the O2, since Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis, which was an amazing night. It just shows you, doesn't it? If there's an audience, they're going to put it on. And there's a bigger audience online than there is in the arena. So much bigger. So it's extraordinary, really.
You mentioned some of the names that were there. One that was there eating his KFC was Chris Eubank Jr. Again, just there was, I think, 2 cheat days. There was one picture that he took in the week of him with a KFC bucket, and then we actually saw him eating it on Saturday.
Well, I'm not sure I'd leave it that long before you buy it to eat it, frankly. But not that I don't have KFC. Although I'm told their beans are very good.
No, really, I've never tried the beans, but there we go.
But look, I saw Chris out in Jeddah. At Fury, at Usyk and Joshua, and he said it's very difficult to lose weight out here because they're feeding me up. I've had some long conversations with Chris since Eubank-Benn 3 was signed, and it's a fascinating fight. And he's got, he's the jeopardy for him. I'm using jeopardy a lot here. Like, he's seriously got to lose some weight, and he can't go up another fight more than about 5 or 6 pounds, I understand, from the 157. So he's going to be really tight at the weight, and Ben could come on strong in that fight if Eubank doesn't hurt him early. So that's what I'm fascinated with, and it was always going to happen. Once they started the talks, that fight was always going to happen, because at the end of the day, both of those and their fathers, both of those men and their fathers have been through it. And the strong advice would have been, if you can make a ton of money out of 1 or 2 fights against each other, if you can make 5 to 10 million, go and do it, because you might never make money like that anywhere else. And you can secure your family's future, buy a few homes to rent, set yourself up, do it. And thankfully they're just close enough. And one is a very young, driving bull, he's got all that energy and fights like his father. And the other one is serene and laid back and antagonistic like his father. We got a match made in heaven, frankly.
How interesting is it that Senior will now be back in Junior's corner? How do you think that will transpire?
Well, I remember Chris talking to me about it, and he had to lure his father back.
Yeah, he said he was on Talksport, I think, with Alan Brazil, and he mentioned that he hadn't heard from his father since the fight.
No, he spoke to me. Even before we went on Talksport, we spoke. I haven't put it out yet, that interview. Some very interesting things in that interview. That, it's not that he couldn't even get hold of his father. His father didn't even want him to take the fight now. And his father's warned him about the risks in this fight, that he could get embarrassed, and it makes sense in boxing terms, having to cut that weight. If Ben is very resilient and keeps coming, Eubank could suddenly find himself completely depleted rather, physically, more fatigued than he's ever felt after, say, 9 or 10 rounds. And he might have to cling on. And I've got a feeling that may happen. And we're going to get a very close decision at the end, where Ben's come on strong at the end. This is so plausible. And we end up with a split points decision that everybody argues is the wrong way. And we'll do number 2 at West Ham or Wembley.
I mean, that would be fantastic, though.
Well, exactly. That's the way boxing works. The way it's always worked. It's I mean, I hate to say it, but I've been around a long time doing this now, and you just see these things and you see how the promotion elements might work. Listen, I do think it's going to be a good fight. I really do. I think it's going to be
bigger this year then. Let's say Fury does take and Usyk do fight later on this year. I think the day before the World Cup was initially what was being said. But anyway, what's a bigger fight?
Eubank-Benn? No, because that's for the number 1 heavyweight of the era, basically.
In terms of buys, though.
Oh, in terms of buys, I don't know. I mean, maybe Ben Eubank in this country. No. It'll be. I think it'll be Fury Usyk. And you've got to remember, 40 million Ukrainians will watch it. That virtually the whole country will watch that, for good reason, for several nuanced reasons. No, you can't compare Ben Eubank to the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. But it is a massive prize fight, though. It's a massive, massive prize fight. And obviously because of what's gone before with, whatever many number of figures, it was 17 million watched it on terrestrial TV in the past, where they signed the contract live on ITV, in those days where there were only 5 channels or whatever it was, maybe a few more. But yeah, but it's still fascinating. It's a big autumn of fights now, beginning with Shields and Marshall next week, and Baumgardner and Meyer on those cards. They're two brilliant women's fights. Fascinated by those. Then it's Canelo and Golovkin. Then back for Parker and Joyce, and on the same night, Lee Wood and Mauricio Lara. And in Eubank, Eubank and Ben. God, I mean, there's so many. I can't remember them all now. Taylor and Catterall. If Usyk and I'm not sure Usyk and Fury will get assigned for December, but they've certainly got the audience out there in Qatar. So, it wouldn't surprise me to see one of the nations put up 150 million for that fight. Half a billy. No, there's no way Fury's getting half a billy.
Well, he said the deadline. I mean, like we said,
but you can ignore that. You can ignore that.
Yeah. What did you make it? Just Fury.
I did an interview with him on June the 18th, where he said he wanted half a billy to come back. And he said, if anyone, it was for the Sunday Telegraph. I think it was the first interview he did about half a billion. Yeah. I did an interview in the Sunday Telegraph, and I used the audio on our fight night on Talksport a few days later, or maybe the following week it might have been. And he was saying then that if anyone would pay that obscene amount of money to challenge his morality, he'd consider coming back. Because if you listen to him, he's kind of conflicted about coming back. But he also knows, because he's a proper fighting man, they know their history. The family know their history, and he's a traveller, of course. It's their national sport. That if he doesn't fight Usyk, there will always be question marks about the era. If he beats Usyk, there won't be many question marks, because no one's going to say, well, he didn't fight Joe Joyce, he didn't fight Dubois, because he's fought, or they might even say he didn't fight Joshua. But if Joshua fights Wilder next or fights White next, and he beats them convincingly, they will put Fury and Joshua together, I think, if Fury beats Usyk, because they'll go, that's a fight that makes money. They've both just won. Let's put them together. And that probably would be his last fight.
Would you not think that, that if he becomes triumphant against Usyk, then that would be the ultimate retirement story, or the ultimate boxing story, really?
Yeah, it is. It is. But the temptation, with the odds heavily stacked for him, if let's say Joshua finds himself, and I think he may find himself in the next few fights, because he's just got to go out there and fight now. He was an improved force against Usyk, no doubt about it. He's still not quite there in terms of what he needs to be. All the petulance, we call petulance the meltdown, definitely the frustration of realizing that he's not quite there. And we saw it in those late videos last week, that he was actually praising Usyk afterwards. It didn't look like it at the time, but he was actually praising Usyk. Look, I'm strong, but you got the skills. I don't have the skills. Do you remember that video that came out late in the week?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
We didn't know that at the time, and I think it put something better on Anthony afterwards, that he's acknowledging, he's not deluded.
I think Joshua seems like someone who's constantly evaluating his own performance, constantly wants to learn, and constantly
he's a victim of his own success, Harry. He's a victim of his own success. He's been fast-tracked to the top. He knows he had 36 amateur fights to Usyk's 350. And he lost 15, and probably 10 of those were in territories he was never going to get the decision. So, of course, he must lament and regret that he didn't discover that at 13, could have had 5 more years, because he would have more skills. And he does have to think his way through it. And it's funny what Robert Garcia said. He's got to come over here if he's going to improve. He's got to come over here if he wants to work with me. Whether he will or not, I don't know, because he does like that scaffolding, that psychological scaffolding around him with his troop of guys and his company here. He's a fascinating story. He's so successful. It's a bit like, I was going to throw that earlier on, we were talking about the YouTubers. He's as frustrated as some of those guys are when they can't do it. That's how frustrated. And yet, look at him. He will finish his career, probably earn £350 million. Yes, he takes a lot of flack. A lot of it is expected of him. But what a successful human being he is, extraordinarily successful. And yet he's still striving. You've got to admire him for that.
What did you make of the comments? Because there's been lots of comments aftermath. I mean, I don't know if Simon Jordan, I don't know if you call him a Talksport colleague, but he came out and said that because there was a lot in terms of AJ made British boxing, and Simon said that no, well, before that we had the George Groves and Froch at Wembley. So what did you make of that comment?
Well, Simon's a professional hired mouth, isn't he? You know, and he's got an opinion about everything, and some of them are very good. He's a bright man. But, you know, I mean, he's jumped on boxing. He doesn't really know anything about boxing, to be fair to him. He's never boxed. He's never been around the industry. He's a very astute man. And yeah, he is one of my colleagues. I like him very much. But I think some of his opinions about boxing show someone with a huge lack of empathy, you know? And I'm not like that. And that's why I'll go and have a quiet, consoling word with Joshua afterwards, even though I'm a Fury fanboy, supposedly. You know, when Tyson Fury had his mental health issues, I sent him a private message saying, if you're feeling really dark and it's 3 a.m, you can call me. I'll speak to you. Nothing to do with work, because we've all had those moments. And it's the same with Anthony Joshua after the Usyk fight. Understanding what another human being's going through. Some of the great sports writers from the past and some of the great broadcasters from the past have always said to me, my mentors, empathy is a great quality. Yeah. Yes, you can be professional about things, but empathy is so important. And on social media today, all the critics, all the sad boys, all the ones that are on their phone but won't do it to your face, they don't know what empathy is. They don't know, you know, but they don't know what balls are either. And these people have balls, and when we're around them, we get to learn about these people. And you know, sometimes you have to, when you've worked with someone for years and years. I've been around Anthony Joshua since about 2011, and he does ask everyone's opinion in a quiet moment. You do get asked his opinion about something. Doesn't mean he's weak. It means he values your opinion, or he wants another slant. And you know, as you'll learn about being if you're around an industry long enough, people either respect you in the industry or they don't, and they respect you for a reason, because you've been there a long time. You've been on lots of journeys with them, private journeys, public journeys, journeys when you're critiquing them, journeys when you make up about things. You know, it's a journey. It's a journey together. At the end of the day, you know, you're the Boswell of those people. You're the scribe who's writing about them or broadcasting moments in their career. And you know, it counts for a lot to be around these people, you know. Some of the great nights you have in your career around them, for good or bad. So there's my lecture for today. Anyway.
Well, no, I mean, I'd say, I mean, I used to work my career, let's say career started. I worked in amateur boxing for around 4 years before this. That's how I got into this. So hopefully, you know, I've maintained relationships with all the GB systems, so I know. And even then now, there's still a massive, yeah, everyone still goes on about the AJ days. There's still resonance of his experience at Sheffield still there. There's Anthony Joshua bikes, and obviously got the speedball and all that. So he's still
legacy. It's called legacy.
Yeah, legacy. That's his legacy's still there. Yeah. But in terms of after the fight, in terms of what he does next, there were talks of him having a long time out, or in terms of him being back in the ring December. By having a long time out, does that just prolong?
He won't have a long time out.
He won't have a long time. So go on.
No, he won't have a long time out. It's a shame Deontay Wilder's got a fight lined up, because he should have fought him, in my view. Fantastic fight. Huge fight. Deontay Wilder should park his backside over here in the UK. There's 5 massive fights for him. Going 150 million from them if they went right, or 100 million. Massive fights. You know, Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois, Anthony Joshua, Dillian White. You know, maybe even a 4th Tyson Fury fight. You know, it's not beyond the bounds. So. No, I'd like to see. I spoke to Dean White on Saturday night. Not that he's necessarily doing the fight, but I'd like to see. I'd like to see Dillian White and Anthony Joshua fight. That's a great fight. They both just lost. It's a great fight to have. It's still a big fight. So that's where I think they're headed. Moving
on swiftly to something that's been announced today. Dimitri Bivol will fight against Ramirez. Yeah, just to get your initial thoughts on that one.
Yeah, great, good fight.
Hello, moving on again to this weekend. we've got Liam Beefy-Smith making his boxer debut in Liverpool. Good to have big time boxing back in Liverpool, Gareth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, look, it's a massive fight town. Liam Smith was going to be fighting Chris Eubank Jr. there, I believe, or fighting Chris Eubank Jr. So, look, Beefy's been around a long time as well. I mean, if you think, he's fought Canelo, he's fought Munguia, he's fought Liam Williams. He's been some tremendous contests. Even recently against this fellow Liverpudlian Fowler in the Grove fight. Yeah, no, look, he's probably the toughest of those four brothers. Callum's still got things to do in the light heavyweight division, and I think he'll be a brilliant light heavyweight. I mean, he looked fantastic against Matthew Bodelique the other day. He's clearly got power at 175. So yeah, I mean, listen, they'll always support their boxers at the Echo Arena. I think Tasha Jonas is on that card as well.
Fight, yeah, she fights massive fight.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in a really good time for boxing at the moment, in my view.